This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, here with you. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody listening to the show. Thank you for the comments. I truly appreciate it. What a week this past week was. This is going out right away, this episode, so I can say something topical and it won't be dated, but man, this may never be dated. I just want to comment on Charlie Kirk being assassinated. I mean, unbelievable. And I won't get too into it, but kind of shocking to follow how it's unfolded on social media. And I didn't watch a ton of his stuff, but I liked him from what I saw. I liked just Christian guys. He had pretty standard Christian views. I would say that some of the reactions that people are having are really, really disturbing. Like, it was really shocking. And I guess people are losing their jobs and people are celebrating his death. And all I can say is, you know, if you see something like that and your first instinct is to celebrate, there's something dark in you, that there's some evil in you that does not make sense to me at all. And I think you need to use this moment to take a look inside, maybe look into the Prince of Peace himself, Jesus Christ, and do some work on yourself, man. That is disgusting. I can't believe I'm seeing this all over the place. Man, really, really heartbreaking to see people doing that, and a lot of people, and people in prominent positions. It's really crazy. So I'll continue to pray for you, and I'll pray that you can find the way, the truth, and the life, and the scales will fall off your eyes, and you can basically just become a different person, because that is grotesque. So God bless Charlie Kirk and his family. Christ is king, and hopefully as a country we can hold it together and move on from here. You'll notice there's no riots in the streets, nothing burning, pretty peaceful reaction from the conservative side, so to be expected. So anyways, just wanted to comment on that. Felt like it was too big not to at least say something about it. It's really, really shocking and crazy. So anyways, back to the fun stuff, guys. I'm really excited for the show. We got a guy coming up he's a gun guy. He was a copper for many years in the great state of California. He did 25 years in law enforcement. He did Modoc County, Truckee City, Yuba City. He was a gang detective, firearms instructor, 10 years on SWAT, and now the founder and owner of Pillar Training Institute. Let me bring on the great Jason Paletta. Jason!
How's it going?
It's good, man. It's great to get you on.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm sorry we're late. Guys, just so you know, I was late. I should know better. Do you have kids, Jason?
I've got 3 kids. That's why I totally understand.
So, you know, like you have these plans and you're like, I'll do this and I'll be home in time for this. It never works and you're never home in time. So I was like 45 minutes late because I went to a soccer game for my 2 boys. But Jason was very gracious and he said, family comes first. So I'm ready when you are. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. 25 years in California. And when did you retire? When was your last year in LE?
Last year, last February was when I retired.
Gotcha. How's it feel?
You know, I'm going to tell you, it's, you know, being a training officer and talking to the young guys coming on, you know, I always try to instill in them that, hey, never let the job define who you are. You know, never let this job just control you. And then you retire, and then I'm like, what the heck? And you don't know what to do. It was bittersweet. You know, I felt like kind of Ricky Bobby. I'm like, I don't know what to do, you know? So, but it was one, I didn't know what to do. You know, where does my path go from here? But the other thing was, it was a huge lift off my shoulders, you know, just from the everyday hustle of, you know, hitting the streets and, you know, it's good. I was blessed with a great career, and, retirement is good. And, I guess like I said, I got 3 kids and, horses and, training company and everything's good.
That's awesome, man. God bless you. That's so cool. Yeah, I did. I took a little break in my law enforcement career. I had a little 4-year exit, and then I came back in. But you're absolutely right. I did like some like investigative stuff for insurance, and I worked for as a civilian background investigator, and there it is much lighter. Everything is lighter, and nothing is there's you see people get stressed out in the office that were in law enforcement, and you're like, what are you so worried about? You know what I mean? Like it does, and you working, especially working a 9 to 5 or making your own hours. It is no being held over, no 70-hour work weeks. It's not bad.
No, it's good. And especially like 19 years out of my 25, I work graveyard. That was just my shift and I like the graveyard. It's a different clientele and you don't have the admin that you're dealing with at the office. So it was the best of both worlds.
Yeah, my father was the same way. He did 32 years and he did a lot of years on midnights, and he always said, "You know what? I don't have to deal with as many annoying people." And I don't know if he was talking about coworkers or the public. And he also said the work that you do on overnights is usually police work. It's like real calls, you know?
Yeah, I've worked, I had to work some rotations of day shifts or swings. And, what the worst part about that was just taking the cold calls or the burglaries or the frauds and stuff like that. It's like, nah, I think I like graveyard better. At least I'm, going back to the term running and gunning. It's just like call to call fights, pursuits. And, you know, it was so much better than working days.
Yeah, absolutely. The fraud stuff now is insane, man. I mean, the amount of older people, and some of them are kind of Luddites being tricked because of AI and everything. It's too much. It's too much to even investigate the amount of people that are getting tricked. It's crazy.
No, it's disheartening. And one of the things that, I've noticed is, I'm always getting emails for people wanting information or anything like that. The first thing I go to, I go to their email and check, what it is because they'll have a different name up there. I'm like, dude, that's a spam, Gmail account. Nope, delete, get out of here. So you have to do your due diligence on that to kind of protect yourself.
Absolutely. Now they're doing a thing where they can actually use one of your loved ones' voices to talk to you, and never mind being like not growing up with tall technology and being much older. Like that's gonna fool a lot more people. That opens up their targets, you know? I mean, it's pretty convincing.
Yeah, I remember this was a few months back, but I got a spam call. I look at it and I'm like, it's coming from my phone number. They use my phone number to call me. I'm like, come on, you can do better than this.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody overseas was like, "Well, nobody's the most familiar number they have is their own. We'll use that one on them." It's like, "No, it's not gonna work."
Surprise.
Yeah. Brother, can you remember way back to when you were a young patrol guy, the first call you went to that, gave you a little adrenaline dump, the first call, hot call?
Yeah, I still remember it plain as day because it was one of those times where you're like, holy crap, this is really happening. Um, it was with Modoc County Sheriff's Office, and yeah, I think this is 1999. Um, and I'm a resident deputy up in like way up north, right on the Oregon border of California. So we would end up back in other agencies across the Oregon border up in Oregon. And I remember this call came out. It was from Malin, Oregon, and it was the chief, Ron Broussard, who had gone to serve a warrant. I'm not going to get into his tactics or anything like that, but he went to go serve a warrant by himself, and it was at a migrant camp. When he got there, he located if it was a female wanted for murder um, out of Stockton, California. So when he went to approach her, he grabs her. He's in plain clothes with a police jacket. She spins around, exposes his gun, and his gun comes out of the holster. Like she grabs his gun,
Ooh.
and the fight was on. So alls I get on the radio is, "Hey, 10:35, My dispatch gets a hold of me, like, you need your spawn code 3 to, Malena, Oregon. They give me the address, and I'm probably 4 or 5 minutes away. I get there, and as I pull in, there are, I would, no joke, probably hundreds of migrant workers just kind of gathered around. I mean, it's like I couldn't even drive through them. It was just so packed. So I get out of my car and they're pointing. I mean, they were all like, "Hey, he's over here." So by the time I reached him, he's on the ground on top of this lady. Her hands are between her legs, and the first thing I'm thinking, I'm like, "Oh yeah, we got this." He's trying to hook her up, and she's not, cooperating. So I grab her arms and I pull her arms up, and here comes a stainless steel Smith and Wesson, um, which was his, and I'm like, "Gun," and he's like, "I know, it's mine." And I was like, "You could have told me that before I started going hands on."
Yeah, right.
So I shove her hands back between her legs, and it was a brawl. I mean, she wasn't letting go of that gun, and we just, I was punching her. I was, everything we could do. And then she comes up with the gun and he starts pulling on the gun. I'm like, "Dude, her finger's on the trigger. Stop pulling on the gun." Um, and at one point, I think I punched her in the face and she ends up dropping the gun. And then it was a brawl with that it was trying to herd cats at that point, trying to get handcuffs on her. But we ended up arresting her, or getting her in custody. And I will say, during the whole sequence of the events that happened, it was, I wasn't thinking about anything but other than getting her into custody. And then after the fact, we have her in custody, we're walking, I'm like, "Dude, what happened?" And he told me the story that I mentioned, prefacing this call, and I was like, "Dude, why didn't you tell me that she had your gun?" He goes, "Oh, I just wasn't thinking about it." He was an old retired LASO captain. So he was up in his age, but it wasn't until I left that call, cleared it, and hit the road where I was just like, I was kind of shaken. I was like, "Holy crap, that just happened."
Yeah.
It could have gone 10 different directions, so hindsight's hindsight, but you don't know until you get there.
Yeah, that's one of the ones you think about before you go to bed that night, Ooh, that could have been bad.
Oh, I'm not lying. I was shaken. I mean, I was a rookie cop. I had no experience. No, the FTO length of time was very minimal. I was so inexperienced, and I'm not going to lie. Judging that with today's officers, and FTOs, I shouldn't have been on the streets by myself, making those decisions. So it was the epitome of OJT. It was on the job training, you know, no getting around it.
Sink or swim. That's crazy, man, and that's kinda rare too, like a female murderer. And also, was she a big lady or just wiry and just didn't I mean, anybody of any size can if they have in their mind, if they're freaking out, it takes a bunch of people to take them down. Was she a big bone lady or no?
No, she was a little wiry. I mean, she had a lot of fight in her, and the homicide warrant was because she killed her boyfriend or husband down in Stockton. So which
Stockton,
is in.
Stockton is I sat next to a lady once, I bellied up to the bar when I was on the road for insurance, and, lady was from Stockton, she was in town for a conference also, and I did not hear good things about Stockton, California.
It's not. I mean, I will say they're doing a great job on cleaning it up and getting the police department back to where it should be. But it's still, man, there's a lot of crime there. There's a lot of crime there.
Yeah, that it's right it's not far from San Francisco, right?
Actually, it's not far from Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Alright.
It's just south of Sacramento on 99.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, they sent when I got the insurance job out there, they flew me up to get my equipment and train for a couple days. It was right outside of San Francisco, it was, like, due east, and it was, like, San Ramon maybe, or I in a super nice. I mean, the hotel I was in was, like, a Hilton, and then in that plaza, like, across the street was like, a Whole Foods, and there was, like, 35 charging stations. I mean, this is 5, 6 years ago, not like, one person was charging their car. I'm like, why do they have so many charging stations at this place?
That's the Bay Area, man. I don't go there unless I absolutely have to.
It is a different world. Like, I would walk around at night. I mean, like, get a cigar and walk around, and there was, just crazy water features like Disney, like a ball of water would shoot out and get caught, like, 30 feet on the other side of the walkway, and there's just people walking around smoking weed. I'm like, "This place is, like, bizarre." Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah, welcome to California. It's
Yeah. Lot
it's
of
its own little animal.
lot of money. I wanted to make it into San Francisco, but I had a rental car, and every time I looked at, like, the Google Maps traffic, I was like, "I don't wanna go in there. I feel like I'll never get
It's
out."
it's crazy. If I had to go to San Francisco for any reason, it was go early and then leave by 1 o'clock. Because if you're not out of there by 1 o'clock, you are in grid traffic. You're not getting out of there for at least 3 hours.
Yeah, I wanted to go over the Golden Gate and go over to, like, Alcatraz and stuff or whatever you can see, and that route it would've been like a 9-hour round trip.
Horrible, horrible.
Horrible. Jason, can you tell us about the strangest or most bizarre thing you dealt with on the job?
Man, like we were talking earlier, there's just so many, and you try to compartmentalize all these calls. Um, I would have to say I got in the pursuit. So one night, this is working for Truckee PD, and we got a call of a carjacking that happened in a city that was just west of us. And this guy had carjacked a taxi cab with a syringe, you know, gets the taxi cabs and he's heading eastbound on 80, and that was the last known direction. So I'm like, well, if he's heading towards Nevada, he's got to come by us. So myself and another officer set on 80, and we're waiting. And it was like, holy crap, did you just, that there he is. Holy crap. He actually showed up.
It worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. So we get behind him. I light him up. Pursuit's on. He takes off, ramp into Truckee. We had a couple of roundabouts at that time, and actually one. And he didn't go around. He went right through the roundabout, hits the other way. It was crazy. Gets back on 80 eastbound. And as we're going, it was crazy because CHP ended up spike stripping him. I'm behind him. And as he was slowing down, he kind of TCs into the retaining wall on the right side. As he hits the retaining wall, I see he comes to a stop. He pops his door, and like all the dust settles, just the debris and stuff from being on the road. And this is probably around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. As he gets out, I visualize it. Like he looks back at me, I see his face, I pop my door, and I'm getting ready to go into flip pursuit. He jumps over the retaining wall. I hit the retaining wall, and as I reached the retaining wall, I don't know, God was looking over me that day. It was just one of those things that it changed my perspective on foot pursuits after that forever. Once I got to the retaining wall, I kind of started to jump up, but I looked over to see where I was going to land. Well, it was a 64-foot drop.
Oh,
Yeah. When he jumped, he landed, I want to say head first on the railroad tracks down there. So he died. But it was just the whole thing. Talk about shaking, like, holy crap, I almost went over this thing, and I would have been laying right next to him. And that was, one of the calls that you never forget, and how it kind of changes your perspective on how you handle those situations, like jumping over fences or, I've known officers, I've worked with officers that have jumped fences and ended up getting shot by the suspect, on the other side because they didn't take the time to look over. So that was probably one of the craziest times that
that's crazy. That's sketchy, man.
it was. I don't know how to explain it, man. It's like, holy, you start shaking, like, I almost died. I almost died because I didn't take the time to look over where I was going to be landing.
Yeah, it's funny that not funny, but that story is similar to Mark Tappan came on. He's got K9 Mattis. I don't know if you've seen him. He's got like three or 400,000 followers, but that's what happened to Mattis. They were chasing a suspect, and he started to put the brakes on, and the dog just jumped off like a 60-foot ledge, and was horribly injured, but okay in the end. But yeah, man, that is I take it for granted how well I know where I work. I work in Western Mass. I work for, a little regional, two little towns combined to have a police department. And I know the nooks and crannies of this place. You know what I mean? I know the fences and it's rural policing, but it's not a huge area. I'm not like, you know, I'm not going on chases miles and miles away. So I kind of know it. So when I hear you guys say that, I'm like, damn, that's true. Like if you're in cities or out on highways, you really don't know what's on the other side of stuff, where there's a drop, whatever.
And one thing, that I'll add is like at nighttime, you see the retaining wall, you don't see anything. You don't know, it's just pitch black out there. So you don't know if it's, a 4-foot drop. You don't know if it's a 64-foot drop. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when you're getting into these split pursuits. You got to be cognizant of what's on the other side of that wall or that fence.
Yeah, absolutely. That just for some reason brought to mind. Did you ever hear about the? I think it was down around L.A. during that big earthquake they had that like did all the damage maybe 20, 30 years ago. I forget the name of it. It was like a 7 on the Richter scale, but there was a motor cop that was driving and he didn't feel it because he was on his motorcycle. He must not have, but he went to go over a little bridge overpass and it wasn't there. But he never even slowed down. He just because it's dark out. You expect the road to be there, like it's and he just.
Right.
I mean, how horrible, crazy.
Tragic.
Let me ask you a side question because you're a gun guy, and I know you know about this controversy because there's no way you don't.
Oh, come. Let's not talk about SIGs.
Yes. True or not true? What is your opinion?
My opinion on that is I really don't have one. I kind of stay out of it. You have everything that has come out on social media. You have people showing videos of guns going, of the gun going off by themselves. Right. I'm not a SIG guy. I think my first duty weapon was a SIG 229, which was way before the 320s.
And the great guns, by the way. I mean, they shoot really well.
Yeah, and I think I shot a student's gun, 320 in a class, and it shot nice.
Yeah.
But with all of the controversy that's come out, regarding the 320 and those variants, I think there's too much out there to not believe what's going on.
That's how I feel. So there must be something.
There's got to be something.
And just so the audience knows, if they're not gun people, the SIG P320 for the last few years there's been situations reported where it's like going off in people's holsters, which is shocking because SIG is like a high end, like they're right up there with Glock. Like they were like military police, everybody uses them. So it was a big controversy.
Yeah. And then you have to bring in consideration, were any of these guns modified? Did they modify the trigger? Did they, the trigger bar, whatever. So, I mean, like I said, I really don't have an opinion on it. I know, teaching for a lot of law enforcement conferences they're on board and nobody allows those guns in the classes right now just because it's a liability. So I get where they're coming from. But yeah, and bring in consideration, the backlash that SIG's gotten for, this problem and how they've handled it, whether it be how they've come out publicly and address the situation or, saying that it's fixed and it's not fixed. I don't know. There's a lot of controversy out on it and there's really, really no opinion on my part of it.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that they denied it first. Then they said, there's not a problem, but we will replace your trigger mechanisms for free. And it was kind of like, well, if there isn't a problem, you're going to do it for it. Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm not dishing on them because my dad carried at work a P226-9, and I love that gun. I still shoot it when I can. It's a great gun, and I hope they're a great company. They're not far from me up in New Hampshire. They have a really cool facility. They have like amazing trainers that were all special forces and high end police officers. Um, I hope they recover from it. I hope it goes away. But it is something that's like you just hear about a lot in the gun nerd world, is that whole controversy. And like you said, like I don't really, it's really hard to parse something out like that, to really find out, like to have a hard stance on it. But like kind of like the classroom thing, I'm not going to appendix carry one. Like I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Because I appendix carry a Glock 43X, and it's pretty much pointed right at my artery when I'm sitting down. And the safety, I've been through the armorer's course. The safeties on the Glock are solid. That thing ain't going off. I'm pretty comfortable with that, so I'm going to stick with that for now.
Right. And then you got to look at the fact that, just the times that we're in, as social media has not helped them one bit, and how much can you actually believe that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's the other thing. You see all these videos, people hitting the back with a hammer or throwing it, and it's like, you don't know these people. They're not professionals. They're just, and they want clicks. That's the ultimate. That's the end. That's the means to the end. Jason, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call?
So back in 2014, this is with the Yuba City PD. We had a domestic violence call that came out, and the suspect had possibly left the apartment. We got up there, we set up a perimeter. We had a contact team, to try to go locate him, in or about the apartment. And after a while, they're like, "Hey, he's gone. He probably broke the perimeter. Let's just, search the area for him." So this is, again, not like I tell my kids, man, nothing happens out good after midnight. This is about 1 o'clock in the morning. And so we break down the perimeter, and I'm driving around, I'm blacked out, lights off, everything. And I'm cruising maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour, just kind of looking around, looking down side streets. And as I pass this one side street, I look down and I see two silhouettes walking. And I was like, all right. So I turned down that side street. I'm still blacked out. They had no idea I was even there. I was just kind of creeping. I put it out over the radio, that I had two subjects walking, gave out my location. And I waited because it was a really dark street. And I waited till they got to the next intersection, had a street light and everything. As they reached that intersection, I pull up and I get out and I start talking to him. It was a male and female. As I'm talking to him, first word, "Hey, anybody on probation or parole?" And the guy's like, "Hey, I'm on probation." I'm like, "Okay, why don't you come towards me?" I'm in front of my car. He comes over to my car in front of me. I turn him around and I'm starting the search. I tell her, I'm like, "Hey, have a seat on the sidewalk." And she's non-compliant. She doesn't want to sit down. I'm like, "Hey, have a seat." And she just kind of squats down with her hands kind of in her, I guess, belly area, around her belt line. So I have him in front of me. I'm searching him. I have two more units show up. I give them the lowdown. I'm like, "Hey, I'm searching this guy. He's on probation." She is not compliant. I told her to sit down. So they go over there, and it's kind of like, you have this front row seat to what's about to go down. And so you have an officer on her left, an officer on her right. Obviously, she's in the middle, and they're all facing me. And I'm probably 15 feet away in front of my patrol car searching this guy. And so they go up to her. They're like, "Hey, stand up." And she's like, "No, I'm not going to stand up." "No, you need to stand up." "I'm not going to stand up." So they both grab an arm. And once I saw that she was really like non-compliant, I throw cuffs on my guy. I set him on the ground. This is after I searched him, and they pull her up to her feet. And as they pull her up, a gun comes out of her waistband in that area. As the gun comes out, it falls and it hits the back of the slide and discharges. Talking about SIGs.
Wow. That's crazy when it's talking about that.
It wasn't a SIG. So as it discharged, the round goes through the front of her right leg and kind of ricochets off her front, like her shin.
Yeah.
It goes and just takes the path, goes around her shin, and it's in an upward direction, and it exits the back of her calf. And the officer that was on her right, it strikes the officer right there, right next to his femoral artery.
Oof.
It was so surreal, and it was like everything just kind of slowed down. Because at first I was like, what happened? Because the officer just kind of falls back, and he's like, dude, I think I've been hit. So the other officer gets her in handcuffs. We secure the gun. At that time, I was actually the SWAT medic on the team. So look, I had all my medical gear with me. And I go over there and I start addressing, what's going on? Where are you hit? He's like, dude, I think I'm hit here, right my left side by my right by my crease, between my leg and my upper torso.
Yeah.
So I'm looking and I see this little hole in his pants. I'm like, oh crap. I end up taking off his gun belt. Because I started ripping his pants to look at it, and it was like, this is just too much stuff on it because it was so high up near his belt line. So I take out his pants and I started just moving everything out of the way. I pull his pants out of the way, and there's a gunshot wound right by his femoral artery. And this goes back to the training portion. I was like, you train so much. Hey, tourniquets, high and tight on the tourniquet. You couldn't even get a tourniquet on it because it was too high up.
Yeah.
And so obviously, we put all this on the radio. And I just started applying pressure, right there on the gunshot wound. Once the fire department and the medics get there, I kind of hand it over to them. They put in, obviously they can't use a tourniquet or anything either. So they put him in, I think they're called mask trousers, whatever, the compression pants they put on him to apply pressure and everything, keep everything down. And I ended up following them over we set up an LZ for a life flight.
Wow.
So we get there, they fly out, and then we find out that he survived, but the bullet had lodged less than 1/8 of an inch from his artery. And it was crazy. It was scary for me because he was my beat partner. We worked together all the time. But anyway, he survived. He was out for, quite a few weeks, and then making a full recovery. He came back to duty. He was arrested for, I think he was actually on parole. He wasn't on probation by the time we found out. And then we arrested her, for the gun and everything. And anyway, they ended up pleading out to something, but that was probably one of the craziest moments, that I had on patrol.
Man, that is insane. Is there I'm trying to think, is there, you get her for the legal possession, of the gun. Is there anything you can tack on for it going off and shooting him for that like negligent discharge? You know what I mean?
It, man. I don't know what the DA ended up doing with it, because they ended up playing out, and that was 2014. But it was, you can only prove what you can prove. But obviously, looking at the whole pictures, I think as soon as they saw me pulling up, he hands her the gun.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
And that's why I don't think it was totally secured in her waistband. It was just kind of in her shirt that she had wrapped up, and then when she got up, it just fell out. So, but thankfully, again, God was watching over us that night, and he made a full recovery, and he retired last year as well, I think.
Damn. So get him on the pod. That's a hell of a story.
Yeah, I'll give you his info.
I mean, horrible situation, but could have hit the artery. Could have hit his wiener. That would have been terrible.
That would have been it. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because everybody reacts to this stuff different. Yeah. It was kind of the joke, it's, as I pulled his pants and everything down, I'm like, holy crap, dude, it must be cold out here.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah. He was like, shut up. I'm like, just kidding.
That's funny. Damn, man, that is insane. I was not expecting that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Do you have any heartwarming stories? Any stories that warm the cockles of your heart from your career?
I have one that it always stuck with me because it ended up being, it was heartwarming because it was a kid in school, but it was also, man, it just kind of pisses you off on how these kids get treated by their parents. Because I'll say one thing about this job is it just, people are mean, people are rude, they're self-centered, and there's just not very often does something happens that you go, okay, I just restored my faith in humanity. It's so anyway, I get called to a school for a kid that never got picked up, and so I go there because they were trying to get a hold of the parent. They couldn't get a hold of the parent or anything. So I ended up going and talking to this kid, and it was kind of, he wasn't giving out information. He didn't really care for police. But looking at him, and he's just disheveled. His shoes look like he'd probably put 100,000 miles on them. They're all tore up, but they were his favorite shoes because I think they were a pair of Air Jordans, and they were just a wreck. It's like you couldn't even lace them up. That's how bad they were. And so I just felt that, man, I feel bad for this kid. He's got I'm sure, kids probably make fun of him. He's not very social. So I ended up giving him a ride to his house where I was finally able to reach his mother. Turned him over to the mother. What's up? She's like, oh, I was running late, and there was no crimes being broken. It was just one of those instances where, okay, well, here's your kid. Make sure that you have stuff set up where you can get your kid safely home from school. So during that time, I forget when it was, I was like, oh, I was making I was like, oh, what size shoes do you wear? Just kind of making conversation. And so he tells me, I drop him off, and then I go to, I think, Big Five Sporting Goods or a shoe store, and I bought him a brand new pair of Air Jordans. The next day, I go and to the school. I'm like, hey, dude, I got you something. And he saw these shoes. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
He was ecstatic. His eyes lit up. He was just so excited. He couldn't get those shoes on fast enough. He got some new Jordans, and the part, and I think I ended up giving him a ride home from school that day too. And we get to his house, and I knock on his door. His mom answers, and this is where it went south. Not really south, but it's kind of just like, you know what? Screw you. You're a horrible person. Because you like, well, you don't need to be buying my kid's shoes and this. And I'm like, the shoes he had on weren't even, I don't think they qualified as shoes,
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, it was heartwarming because just the look on his face, but also the fact that people are just mean and unappreciative. And, for her, this isn't about her. This is about her son. And, it was heartwarming just to see the look on his face.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a serious gift. Jordans are kids love those sneakers and they're not cheap.
No, they weren't cheap. And like I said, it was just, I was fortunate and blessed enough to be able to go out and use my money to buy him something that he couldn't afford or his mom wouldn't buy him to make his life better.
Right. And she took
You know?
offense. Yeah, people are funny, this is kind of along the same line. Years ago, I went to a call. I think I was doing a canvas for like a break-in or something, and just rapping on doors. And nice house, nice yard. Had like a gravel dirt driveway. Lady comes out, very nice. She has this dog that's like a year old. This is my first day in my tour for the week. Pressed uniform. I'm like carefully walking down the stones. I don't want to get my boots screwed up. And her dog is jumping all over me with muddy paws. And it happened twice, and I was kinda like, "Ha like, I put my knee up, it's like, "Down, down." The whole time I was talking to her, she did nothing. She's like, "He's just a puppy. Oh, he wants to play with you." I'm wearing, like, almost a black uniform covered in mud, and to this lady, totally fine. So, eventually, like, he hit me from behind, like, right below my butt cheeks on my mid-thigh, 2 big paw I'm like, "Listen, can you put your dog in the house? Like, this is I'm covered in mud." To her, and when I asked that, she was kinda like, "You don't like dogs?" I'm like, how are we not seeing the same thing? I am covered, my pants are almost brown now. It was insane, and I left it feeling the same way, thinking, "How were you raised?" Like, I don't understand how your brain works.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like dogs, but right now I don't like your dog.
Right. I wash this uniform once a month, whether it needs it or not, and I can't have mud all over it.
Exactly. Yeah, people are just they're oblivious, man. I don't get it. You know,
Yeah.
I have a very small circle. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of people. Um, unless they have something that, we can associate together or something that we share. Um, but most people walking out and about, I don't like going to big crowds. I don't like, I hate going to the mall, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife and I were just talking about this, like, going to concerts when we were younger and bumping into all these strangers and blah, blah, and I'm like, especially now, especially with what happened last week, it's like, I would be so uncomfortable at a big concert or any big event, with a bunch of strangers I don't know. I'd be like, "Ugh, get me out of here."
Yeah, they dragged me to my niece's, it was like her 14th birthday or whatever, 13th, maybe younger, but it was a Gwen Stefani concert.
Oh, boy.
And I was like, all right, I'll go. So we go and it is just standing room only. I got people like spilling beer on my leg and on my shoes. And I'm just, I'm going to go back over here and stand in the corner. I'll keep an eye out. Have fun. Yeah.
You're too old for that, but good for you for giving it a try. Trying to appease the niece. Um, Jason, popular question on the show, advice to new police officers. People are thinking about doing it, they're on the fence, they're in backgrounds. What would you tell somebody just getting to the job now in 2025?
Like I talked about, don't let the job define who you are. I think one of the biggest mistakes are when people are in law enforcement is they surround themselves with law enforcement friends, who they work with, do this. Um, and so that means that you're basically 24 hours a day is all you're doing is thinking about the job, because you can't tell me that you're not going to sit there with your friends and talk about a call that you were on a week ago or, whatever. Um, you know, you have to surround yourself with people outside that circle that aren't in law enforcement. There has to be that barrier. And that's one thing that I thought I was doing right. Again, when you retire, I think it is a whole different story because it's the only thing you've been doing it for so long. Uh, excuse me. But hmm, the fact that I had friends that weren't in law enforcement, um, it was people I rode horses with or people that, I build, Mustangs or whatever cars with. So it was totally outside the law enforcement thing. And I think that's the best way to decompress from all the crap that you see when you're working. So that's going to be, I've always said that. Don't let the job define who you are. You have to have that barrier and that escape. Otherwise, whether you know it or not, it will start wearing on you. There's always those calls out there that you'll never forget. To this day, I have one call, we didn't even discuss it, but it was like horrible. And I'll never forget it. But, as your body, you take that call and that experience and you kind of shuffle it away into a box, and in the back of your head, what's going to stop that from coming out eventually, and how you're going to deal with it. And I'll discuss the call if you want. If you got time, I'll talk about it. But
Sure.
it was, so we get there's a call of a guy that was hit by a vehicle, on a main thoroughfare between two cities. We get out there. This guy is laying in the middle of the road. He wasn't hit by one car. He wasn't hit by two cars. He was hit by three cars. The sad part is the first two did not stop. So we get to him, and he is like, his groin, he was split like in half, dang near. His shoes were 100 yards down the road, along with his testicles. I mean, he has his, insides were kind of just hanging out. And we were one of the first on scene. So I get there and, I start holding C-spine on him. As I'm holding C-spine, he's just like, he's still alive. He was scratching at me. He's like, I can't breathe.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible. Ambulance gets there. We get him in the ambulance. I ended up riding in the ambulance with him because I had the C-spine. So we get to the hospital, and he ended up dying. But the hospital was like, holy crap, that is probably the most blood that we've seen in 20 years at this emergency room.
That's saying a lot.
It was the floor of the ambulance, like we were standing in blood. It was just so much. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that you see that you don't talk about a lot. But it gets locked back here.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it'll come out. Sometimes, it will just kind of stay in that one spot. But that's the importance of, having a good support foundation for you, your home life, your friends, your family. Because a lot of stuff goes on that people don't understand. The statistics of, and I'm going to screw up the numbers because I've seen so many of them, but how many, people usually experience maybe a handful of critical incidents, in their lifetime, where law enforcement has 1,000, so you really have to have a good support foundation for that. Whether you think it or not, you always got officers like, oh no, I'm good. This is just the job. I don't care who you are. You know what? Everyone puts on their pants, one leg at a time, just like, me, you, something's bound to happen sometimes. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is crazy how it works. Like, I've talked to guys on here before that same idea, kind of stuffing things away. Excuse me. And some people go to their grave with it and live till they're 85, cop. And you're like, wow. And then big percentage of cops don't live that long. And some percentage of cops are standing in line at McDonald's or wherever, and all of a sudden have a horrible panic attack. And they're like, I've been retired for 15 years. What the hell's going on? And then eventually they get some help, and they tell them, well, first of all, when a cop starts talking to a therapist, the therapist is like, Yeah, it's totally okay to have some trauma because you're giving me PTSD hearing your stories. You know, I don't think that, like you said, we get so galvanized or callous to it that you think, um, it's just a job. It's no big deal. But yeah, it's really, it's not, we're not, I don't think we're really designed to see that stuff. I mean, you go to war, you go to battle and it's over, you come home, recover, screws you up. But to do 25, 30 years and to be exposed to it on and off for all those years, it's just not, I don't think we're physiologically designed to process that. Most people, I think it just does damage to you. And you gotta, like you said, you can counter it by taking care of yourself, whatever it is for you, that helps you. But yeah. And also I'll comment on you with hanging out with other cops. When you're a young cop, you always are first few years. It's like all about the job, cop cookouts, cop this, cop that. And then when I look back, I like, I just feel bad for my wife because, we don't shut up about the stupid war stories, at the cookout or whatever. The wives must have been like, guys, enough. It's enough with the cop stories.
But it's hard because I still obviously keep in touch with, my gang partner, when I was in the gang unit, and, we'll go out to dinner with, our wives or his girlfriend, whatever. And what do we end up doing? Dude, do you remember that call, dude? That was so crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
But a lot of it's in humor anymore. Or the ones that we talk about, we don't dig up you know, the bad ones. We just think of the good times that we had, on the road. That might have been a bad time for somebody else, but it maybe wasn't law enforcement. It's all the same thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Jason, tell us about Pillar Training.
So I own Pillar Training Institute. It's a law enforcement training company. I really focus on um, mostly firearms, but really lately I've really got into um, not just the firearm portion of it, but close interaction. I've had a class that I created years ago, and it has evolved into the point where, okay, now we need to talk about how are we approaching these people, suspects or people, subjects on the street. Because if you look at FBI, NIVERS, all these statistics, you have over 60,000 officers a year that are assaulted during either arrests or, searches or transportations. But there's really nothing, they talk about how searching people is, but how do you react to it? So a lot of my classes, I teach for, the Ohio Tactical Officers Association. In fact, I'm doing a class next weekend for California Tactical Officers Association, Texas, and then Indiana also.
Wow, good. You get around.
So yeah, and this class is like really near and dear to my heart because, I created off of statistics. I created it off of, experience, what I've experienced on the streets. So that's what this company's mainly about. And you know what? It's if an agency wants to host me, it doesn't take much to get me there. It's just it's a passion. So that's Pillar Training Institute. It's pillartraining.net. And then my Instagram is pillar_training_institute_. And people can reach out to me on there or follow me on there.
Awesome. I will put that in the show notes so people don't have to go searching. They can just follow you or check out the website, hire you on for some training. Jason, it is an honor to have you on, man. Great stories. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Can you hold on just like 2 minutes when I do the outro?
Yep.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Jason Paletta. Crazy stories. One of these guys too, where he said when I sent him the question, he's like, I don't know if I have stories for this. And of course he does. He's got a ton of them. I'm saying that because there's guys out there that you don't think you have the stories that come on, but I'm telling you, if you have 5 years or more on almost any agency, you're going to have some stories. And I was telling Jason before we started, like, yeah, when I started the podcast, I was at LAPD backgrounds and as a background guy, and 30-year veteran would be like, let me think about it. I don't know if I have the stories that come on. And I'd be like, dude, brother, you have the stories. And yeah, Jason had some wild ones. Those are really fun. I appreciate him sharing those with us. Go check out his website and his training, and also follow him on Instagram. This is the time of the show when I thank the Patreon sergeants. You sign up. Geez Louise. You sign up for sergeant or above, you get a shout out on the show. Who I'm talking about. Start with the lieutenants. Who I'm talking about is the great and powerful Andy Biggs, the great Kyle Roberts, Michael Roach from Roach Machines AI Solutions. Check him out. The handsome, now to the sergeants, the handsome Lane Campbell, Gary Steiner, Adam Mihal, Tony Fahey, Seth Wright, John Shoemaker, Lauren Stimson, everybody, Jason Lau, Sasha McNabb, Sean Clifford, the great Tammy Walsh, holding it down dispatch. Thank you, Tammy. Greg Gadboy, everybody. Love me some Greg. Iceman, Motor Cop Chronicles. Check out his podcast. George Tessier, love you, buddy. See you at church. The great and powerful Dennis Carrasquillo, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Young, everybody. Dan Carlson from Burley Boys. Check out his woodworking on Instagram. Amazing stuff. Doug and Kelly Newman. Love you guys. Hope you're enjoying Wyoming. The great Raymond Arsenault, everybody. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother. Stay safe out there. Elliot Sykes, everybody. Thank you. Brad Thompson. Thank you, sir. The great Nancy Hammond. Clark LaCuff, everybody. Adam McMahon. Thank you. Sheriff Ronald Long. Thank you very much, sir. Zachary Pleat. Come on. Zachary Pleat, everybody. Thank you. The great Jason Labrie. Greg Carey Otis. Oh, Greg. Forgive me, George. George Carey Otis. My man. Thank you. John Jordan. Dylan Mosher, everybody. John and Aaron Kate. Love you guys. See you at church. Lisa Gano. Thank you, Madame. Sherry Finch. Gabriel Decknop. Are you kidding me? Thank you, sir. Truly appreciate you. Sam Conway, everybody. The great Jackson Dalton. Black Box Safety. Thank you, sir. The handsome and venerable Marcus Johansson. Thank you. And the great Brett Lee. Thank you, everybody, for the support. I truly appreciate that when you show it monetarily. If you've enjoyed, and all that to say, the show will remain free. But if you've enjoyed the show and all the free content and you want to help to keep the boat afloat and show old Stevie Boy some love, you can do that through the link in the show notes to the Patreon. That's all for this week. I love you guys, and I'll see you later.